There's a particular exhaustion that settles into your bones when you've been trying too hard for too long. It's not the kind of tiredness that sleep can cure. It's the weariness that comes from swimming upstream against the current of your own life, from believing that if you just push harder, control more, optimize better, you'll finally arrive at that mythical place called contentment. But what if everything you've been taught about success and happiness is precisely what's keeping you from both? Tonight, as millions scroll through endless feeds of productivity hacks and morning routines, a 2,500-year-old philosopher sits quietly in the margins of our collective consciousness, holding a truth so radical it could revolutionize how you approach every single day. Lao Tzu didn't write about maximizing your potential or crushing your goals. He wrote about something far more subversive, the profound power of doing less, being still, and allowing life to flow through you rather than forcing yourself upon it. Most people encountering Taoist philosophy for the first time make a critical mistake. They approach Wu Wei, the principle of non-action, as another technique to master, another strategy to implement. They think stillness means becoming passive, that flowing with life means giving up their agency. This misunderstanding reveals something deeper about our cultural conditioning. We've been so thoroughly trained to equate worth with effort that the idea of effortless action feels like a contradiction, even a betrayal of everything we've been taught about achievement. But here's what gets lost in translation. Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing everything from a place of alignment rather than resistance. It's the difference between a salmon fighting upstream and a bird riding thermal currents. Both are moving with intention, but only one is working with the natural forces around them. This confusion stems from our fundamental misunderstanding of power itself. We've been conditioned to believe that power comes from domination, from bending reality to our will through sheer force of effort. Lao Tzu suggests something far more sophisticated, that true power emerges from understanding the patterns of life so deeply that you can move with them rather than against them. Let's excavate the psychological roots of why this ancient wisdom feels so foreign to modern minds. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we've learned to reject or suppress. In our achievement-obsessed culture, stillness has become shadow material. Rest is guilt, ease is laziness, going with the flow is weakness. This psychological split runs deeper than personal preference. It's embedded in the very architecture of how we've learned to relate to existence itself. From childhood, we're taught that love is conditional, that acceptance must be earned, that our inherent worth is somehow always in question. This creates what psychologists call an anxious attachment to life itself. We become convinced that if we're not constantly proving our value through action, achievement, and optimization, we'll somehow cease to matter. The exhaustion you feel isn't just physical, it's existential. It's the bone-deep weariness that comes from treating your own life like a project that needs to be fixed, a problem that needs to be solved, a performance that needs to be perfected. You've been living as if you're the director, producer, and critic of your own existence, and the reviews have been brutal. This is where Lao Tzu's radical proposition becomes not just philosophy but medicine. What if the very effort you're expending to improve your life is what's making it feel so difficult? What if the resistance you feel isn't coming from external circumstances, but from your own attempt to control what cannot and should not be controlled? There's a moment in every person's journey when the old paradigm stops working. Maybe it's when you realize that achieving everything you thought you wanted didn't bring the satisfaction you expected. Maybe it's when you notice that the harder you try to feel better, the worse you actually feel. Maybe it's simply the recognition that you've been holding your breath for years, waiting for life to begin once you get everything perfectly arranged. This moment of recognition is what existential philosophers call the encounter with absurdity. Not absurdity in the sense of meaninglessness, but absurdity in the recognition that the gap between what you've been seeking and what actually fulfills you is vast and unbridgeable through effort alone. Here's where you might feel deeply seen. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're not failing because the strategies that work for others don't work for you. You're actually having a completely appropriate response to a paradigm that was never designed to nurture human flourishing in the first place. Your exhaustion is wisdom. Your resistance to the endless optimization is sanity. Your longing for something deeper than productivity metrics is your soul calling you home to yourself. The Taoist concept of yin and yang isn't just about balance in some abstract sense. It's about recognizing that life itself is composed of complementary forces that create harmony through their interplay, not their domination of each other. In your own life, this means honoring both the seasons of action and the seasons of rest, both the impulse to create and the need to simply be. When you've been trained to only value the yang aspects of existence, the active, the productive, the visible, you begin to atrophy the yin qualities that actually make life worth living: receptivity, intuition, presence, the ability to simply witness beauty without needing to capture or improve it. This brings us to the threshold of genuine transformation. The revelation isn't that you need to add more practices to your life. It's that you need to subtract the ones that are keeping you separate from your own natural rhythm. The transformation isn't about becoming someone different. It's about remembering who you were before you learned that you weren't enough exactly as you are. Lao Tzu wrote that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. This isn't mystical obscurity. It's pointing to something profoundly practical. The most important aspects of a fulfilling life cannot be grasped through analysis or achieved through strategy. They emerge from presence, from allowing, from what he calls the uncarved block, your original nature before it was shaped by external expectations. Consider this. What if your natural state is already whole? What if the peace you're seeking isn't something you need to earn, but something you need to stop interfering with? What if the flow you're trying to find is actually the current you're already in, and you've just been swimming against it so long you forgot what it feels like to let it carry you? This is where the philosophy becomes deeply personal. In your own life, where are you forcing? Where are you pushing against doors that might open easily if you stopped shoving and started feeling for the handle? Where are you treating symptoms instead of addressing the root cause, which might simply be your own resistance to what's already present? The practice isn't complicated, but it requires a kind of courage our culture doesn't often acknowledge. The courage to be ordinary, to be imperfect, to be human without apology. It's the radical act of treating your life not as a problem to be solved, but as an experience to be lived. As we explore these ancient truths and their modern applications, you might find yourself wanting to dive deeper into this journey of self-discovery and authentic living. This brings me to someone whose work beautifully bridges Eastern wisdom with contemporary insight. Gary Nguyen is a 29-year-old author currently living in Silicon Valley who has published 13 books in Vietnam since she was 17 years old, including novels, short stories, and personal essays. You can find some of her works on Amazon, such as Just Hear Me Out and A Luxury Item Called Me. What makes Gary's work particularly resonant is how she weaves together the philosophical depth we've been exploring with the lived experience of navigating modern life's complexities. Her books offer not prescriptive solutions, but intimate reflections that honor both the struggle and the beauty of being human in an age of endless optimization. If the ideas we've discussed tonight have touched something in you, her writings provide a companion for this deeper exploration, a way to continue this conversation with yourself long after this video ends. The gentle revolution Lao Tzu invites us into isn't about changing everything at once. It's about beginning to notice where you're swimming upstream and asking if there might be another way. It's about recognizing that your sensitivity to the harshness of modern life isn't a weakness to overcome, but wisdom to honor. Start small. Notice one area of your life where you're trying too hard. Maybe it's in relationships, where you're constantly managing other people's emotions instead of simply being present with them. Maybe it's in your work, where you're optimizing productivity instead of focusing on quality and meaning. Maybe it's in your relationship with yourself, where you're constantly trying to fix or improve rather than accepting and appreciating. In that one area, experiment with less effort, not less care. See what happens when you stop pushing and start feeling your way forward. Notice what emerges when you create space instead of filling it. This isn't about becoming passive or giving up on your dreams. It's about aligning with the deeper currents of your life so that your actions emerge from presence rather than panic, from clarity rather than compulsion. The ancient Taoists believed that water is the softest thing in the world, yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong. Your gentleness with yourself, your willingness to flow around obstacles rather than battling them head-on, your commitment to presence over productivity, these seemingly soft qualities might be exactly what's needed to create the life you actually want to live. Tonight, before you sleep, try this. Instead of planning tomorrow, simply rest in the awareness that you are already whole. Instead of solving your problems, simply acknowledge them with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Instead of optimizing your experience, simply be present to what's already here. If this exploration has resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your own relationship with stillness and flow in the comments below. And if you're hungry for more conversations that honor both ancient wisdom and contemporary insight, consider subscribing. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply allowing ourselves to be seen, to be imperfect, to be gloriously, ordinarily human. The Tao that cannot be spoken is waiting in your willingness to stop speaking and start listening. It's waiting in your courage to be still. It's waiting in your decision to flow.